Hi, everyone. Welcome to week 3. I hope that you all had a great Labor Day weekend and ready for our third week, new week. So if you are taking any face-to-face class or any hybrid class, today is the day actually that the campus will be open to our face-to-face and our hybrid students. If you are taking all the classes online, you do not have to go to campus at all. And I'll be busy with my son. His school actually will start today, Tuesday. He's in second grade, and we actually chose to do, what do they call it? They don't call it online. All right, remote learning. Okay, I totally forgot. He's staying home anyways with me. So we're doing virtual learning. Okay, that's the term that they're using. It will be challenging, I'm pretty sure, but we can do it. But he's going at least for the first 9 weeks of the year, and then we'll decide if we want him to go to school face to face, or again we continue doing it at home. So I'll be super busy, but that's okay. Anyhow, so for this week, we're going to study chapter 3. Last week, we studied chapter 2. Let me know if you have any question about chapter 1 and chapter 2. So as I told you in the previous video last week, we touched different topics in chapters 1 and chapter 2, different definitions, terminologies. We talked about production possibilities model in chapter 1. We talked about budget line in chapter 1 in terms of the economic models. And we talked about and learned about circular flow, which was in chapter 2. Starting this week, we're focused on just one topic, okay? This chapter is very, very important. It's about demand and supply. I'm pretty sure that you heard about demand and supply, or at least you have an idea what we mean by demand and supply. You will get lots of questions on the first test from chapter 3 because it's very, very important. Make sure that you understand everything because our future chapters are also based on chapter 3. So for instance, within chapter 6, we talk about price elasticity of demand. You need to know what we mean by demand. You need to remember the shape of our demand curve and all those things that we discussed for demand. Okay, so chapter 3 is very, very important. So in this chapter, you will learn about demand, quantity demanded, supply, quantity supply. Make sure that from day one, you know the difference between demand, quantity demanded, supply, quantity supply. I recorded some videos and I put them actually in the weekly modules on D12. So make sure that you watch them. But let me just tell you overall what we mean by demand and supply. So demand basically is coming from the demand side of the market, us, consumers, buyers. So if we put together what we want as buyer, we're basically looking at demand. So demand is basically the need that is coming, or the wants of all the, or the demand of all the buyers in the market. Okay, and in this chapter, we're just focused on one specific market, which is called perfect competition, and we're going to come back to this market in chapter 10. So we're going to talk about profit maximization in this market in chapter 10. Again, another reason to pay attention to this chapter. So what's special about this market? We have tons of buyers and sellers in this market. This is probably the easiest market that you can enter as a consumer or as a producer, especially as a producer. If you make money, you can stay in this market. If you can just leave the market very, very easily. The buyers and sellers in this market are price takers, meaning that one buyer or one seller cannot impact the price. All the buyers, all the sellers together can change the price, as we will see when we talk about market equilibrium. Okay, so the demand is coming from all the buyers in the market, and the supply is coming from all the suppliers or producers in the market. Okay, there are so many factors that can impact your demand as a consumer. It can be your income, it can be the price of the goods and services that you purchase, it can be your taste or your preference, it can be the price of other goods, other related goods as we call them. important here, and many other factors. There are expectations about future, especially these days. We actually live on expectations. Okay, so how much you spend as a buyer actually depends on your expectations about future, right? We're living in pandemic, so you really care about your future. You are worried about your future. So expectations are very, very important for both consumers and for producers, by the way. Anyhow, so there are many reasons that can impact your demand, okay? But since price is the most important factor that can impact your purchasing plans as a buyer, we are focused on price, okay? We want to see basically we're trying to figure out the relationship between price and how much goods and services you are going to buy as a consumer to define our demand. If we find that relationship, we can define our demand, okay? If other factors that are impacting your purchasing plans, your income, your expectations, your preferences, they are all fixed. Remember, in economics, as you probably remember from chapter 1, we make lots and lots of assumptions, okay? You can be skeptical about the assumptions that we make, but remember that we make these assumptions to make our lives easier and to understand economic models, but you can definitely be skeptical. So if other factors are fixed and the only thing that is impacting your purchasing plan is your price, and if you figure out the relationship between price and the number of goods and services that you buy, you can find your demand. And we, as a buyer, we all know this demand. In our bones, we know this relationship between price and how much we buy. By the way, how much we buy is the quantity demanded that I mentioned earlier, okay? So if something is expensive, you buy less. If something is cheaper, you buy more. That's the relationship. That's the relationship between price and how much you buy. That's the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Okay, so there's an inverse relationship, right? If price goes up, you buy less. Your quantity demanded will go down. If price goes down, it's cheaper, you buy more. Your quantity demanded will go up. That's why when you look at the notes, you will see a downward slope demand. That's the shape of our demand that you need to know, you need to remember. So demand is downward slope. So one point on your demand is the quantity demanded, because quantity demand is just one number. If price is $1, I will buy 5 apples. This 5 is my quantity demanded, okay? But if I have different prices and different quantity demanded, then I can have my demand. Okay, that's the difference between demand and quantity demanded. Same thing applies to supply. I don't want to make this video too long, but briefly on supply, supply is coming from all the suppliers, all the producers in the market. Again, there are so many factors that can impact the production plans, our selling plans of our producers, our sellers. If we just look at the relationship between price and how much our producers are able to produce and sell, which is called quantity supply, then we are able to define our supply. So keep other factors fixed, like expectations, like number of buyers we have, like price of resources, or the price of input that you need to produce these goods and services. If all these factors are fixed, and if you look at the relationship between price and how much goods and services our producers can produce and sell, then you can define your supply. Remember, to understand the supply, think as a producer, as a seller. Your goal as a producer is to maximize your profit, to make tons of money. So if the price of your product in the market is low, you do not have that many incentives to sell in the market. You are a greedy producer, right? You want to make money. So you are going to wait for the market to change. So when the price is going down, your quantity supply, which is how much you are going to sell, will go down because you are greedy. You want to make money. This price is not in your favor. You like to see increase in the price. So as soon as the price in the market increases, you have more incentives to sell, so your quantity supplied will go up. Again, the big assumption is that the other factors that are impacting your production and your selling plans are all fixed. So unlike demand, price and quantity supplied are moving in the same direction. That's why our supply curve is upward slope. Okay. Another thing that I want you guys to pay attention in this chapter is market equilibrium and the changes at the equilibrium. So when we put together the demand and supply, we can define our market equilibrium. The intersection of downward slope demand, upward slope supply is our market equilibrium. Look at how we define shortage and surplus. Again, I'm pretty sure that you kind of have a sense about surplus and shortage, what we mean by them. But remember that when we define equilibrium, then we start changing our demand, okay, and our supply later on. And remember, by this change, we mean shifting our demand. Because so far we just talked about price and quantity demanded, price and quantity supply. So anytime that you change the price, your quantities are changing. There is no shift in demand. So you're just moving from one point to another point. Watch the video that I recorded already, okay? So if you are changing the price, there's no shift in demand and supply. But if you are talking about your expectations about future prices, there will be a shift in your demand. There will be a shift in your supply. If the cost of production for you as a supply is changing, then there will be a shift in your supply. There's no movement along your supply. There's no jump from one point to another point on your supply. You are on a completely new supply, okay? So know what we mean by shifting or changing the demand, shifting or changing the supply, and movement along the demand and supply. Okay, it's on the notes. I also made some videos for you. Okay, watch them. Another important thing is complex cases. When we change the demand and supply at the same time, which are actually more realistic because that's what happens in the real life. Demand and supply are constantly changing. Demand changes, supply changes. If supply changes, demand changes. Because buyers and sellers actually, they send signals to each other through the market, right? So anytime that there is a change in demand, there will be a change in supply. So in real life, actually, demand and supply are changing at the same time. So for complex cases, I would suggest that get comfortable with drawing graphs. There's so many things that you need to remember at the time of the test. So you can definitely memorize all those complex cases. If demand increases, supply increases, what will happen to the price and quantity at the market equilibrium? If demand and supply move in the opposite direction, what will happen to your price and quantity? You can definitely memorize all those cases, but I would suggest that to answer those questions, just to check your kind of your answer and to kind of test your memory, try to draw these cases. That's, I think, the safest way to answer those type of questions. Just don't trust your memory because there's so many things that you try to remember at the time of the test. So try to learn them. Try to learn basically how they work. And when you draw them for a couple times, then you get them. Okay, then you know, okay, demand is going up, so I'm shifting the demand to the right. Supply is going down, so I'm going to shift my supply to the left. Do I know how much they are changing? Read the question. If the question didn't tell you, then probably price or your quantity will be unknown. Okay, if you read my notes, you know what I mean by unknown or ambiguous, we say. What else? And at the very end of the chapter, make sure that you read price ceiling and price floor that you probably again heard about. At least you heard about minimum wage. What else? Minimum wage is an example of price floor. So make sure what we mean by price floor, price ceiling. Let me look at my notes just to make sure that I covered everything. Yes, that's pretty much it. So try to draw lots of graphs in this chapter. You're going to need graphs, especially when we talk about, let's say, cost and production. We're going to draw more graphs. They are not probably similar to demand and supply, but this chapter actually is a good start to to kind of warm up ourselves with graphs and drawing different diagrams and things like that. So for this chapter, I'm looking at my notes. You have homework number 2, and you have the smart book from chapter 3, and also you have discussion 2 on D12, and they're all due on September 14th. Okay, and September 14th. And also last week, you can, of course, look at my weekly email. I put all the information also there for you. I also recorded a video last week and I emailed it to you, which was about, I believe there's also an announcement on D12 to kind of just keep it handy about the term paper. So make sure you watch it. I also included it in my weekly email for this week. So make sure that you watch it. If you have any question, let me know. I hope that you all have a great week. Please be in touch with me. Let me know if you have any question about any topic, anything. What else? And I was just watching the news. There is a cool front coming to Houston. I'm so excited about that. So hopefully you also enjoyed the weather. I think it's coming this weekend, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's at sometime next week. Anyhow, have a great week. Let me know if you have any question. My calendar is just popping up. So let me know if you have any question, and take care. Next time.